Welcome to the Go to War podcast with your host, John Paramore. Now it's time to go to war. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Go to War podcast. This is your host, John Paramore, and thank you guys so much for all of the great reviews and all the things that you guys have, comments and all that stuff on our podcast. Just so you guys know, kind of like what we go over at the beginning, these podcasts are a project for me where I get to give back. I get to take 20 years of wisdom, knowledge, I don't know, craziness, stupidity, and share all that stuff with you guys on this podcast. So it means a lot to me. For those of you that are listening on a regular basis, you're sharing this podcast out, you're getting the message out to other people. We've had some people reach out and share some really inspiring stories, and so that motivates me to keep moving this thing forward. It's important to me that this gets out and you know, that it's helping people, and the reason why we're doing it is for the right reason. Just like we do at the beginning of every single podcast, I like to let everybody know at the beginning when we do the podcast, from time to time, there's going to be some language in here that you are not going to want to hear. If you have, I don't know, like a snowflake mentality, if you're one of those people that gets easily offended by the word fuck, this is probably not your podcast. Just being transparent, honest with you, letting you know right up front, so you're not one of those people that listens to the podcast, gets all butthurt, and then decides to leave a negative review because you don't like the salty language. So now that we've gotten those things out of the way, the homework, if you will, is done, we can circle back and get to today's podcast. Today's podcast is one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's one of the things when I go speak in public, I bring this up a lot. And it's one of the things that as we do work with our clients, especially in the beginning, we like to unprogram the mindset and reprogram the mindset of it does not have to be hard. It does not have to be as difficult as some of you guys, especially in your business, are making it, right? Most of the time, what I've found out is there's a lot of ways to make it, especially in the world of business, there's a lot of ways to make things easier. But what happens is people believe, society has tried to convince us for a long period of time that owning a business is supposed to be fucking hard. And if I'm being fully transparent with you and completely candid with you, the reality is when you're in the early stages of business ownership, I would say in the first few years, it's really fucking hard because you're trying to figure things out. You're trying to really identify what the directionality of your business is going to be. You're trying to figure out what does your business stand for? What's the purpose behind you being in business? There's just a lot of unknowns. The reality is business in and of itself doesn't actually get any easier, right? It doesn't get easier as you go because as you go at each different level, you're working to create new levels. What gets easier is at a certain level, it's different for every business, but at a certain level, the problems don't seem to take as much toll on you as they used to. The situations that arise don't surprise you as much as they used to. But the hard that I'm talking about that's unnecessary is some of you guys are in this habit of what I would say, you know, you guys have all seen the movie where Jim Carrey's in it and he's like kicking his own ass, liar, liar, right? Some of you guys are just in the habit of kicking your own ass. You take a process that needs to be really, really simple and you overcomplicate it because you just don't believe that it should be that simple, right? So I see this time and time again when I go into businesses where they've taken a process, a simple process, how to get from point A to point B, and they've added in like 50 extra steps because in their mind, they believed that it's supposed to be more complicated and harder than it really is. So I want to, at the beginning of this right now, I want to differentiate the difference between the work that you're doing being hard because you're working to grow and expand and become someone different at each level as you develop and things like that. And the work that you're doing being hard because you, from a mindset standpoint, are overcomplicating the shit out of it. Okay. So the important part is that we differentiate the two and get you really clear about the parts of it that are just going to be hard so you can own that. you can callous your mind around that. You can work on becoming someone different who can stomach that and deal with that. And the difference between you making it harder than it should be or has to be because you believe that a process that is simple or a step that is simple needs to be more complicated than what it really is. So let's talk about part number one and go down that in depth in a little bit, okay? I'll give you an example because that's what I like to do. I like to share stories with you so you know that I'm a human and these are things that I've done, and hopefully you learn something from it and you adapt from it and whatever the case may be, and you can change the directionality in which you do things, okay? So for probably the first 4 years of business ownership for me. So for those of you listening that are younger, that are figuring things out, maybe you're older and you're figuring out how to open or operate your first business, okay? The first 3 to 4 years were mostly me figuring things out, okay? That's a hard place to be in because trying to figure things out and run a business, there's a lot of uncertainties that show up. In that space, what happens if you're not careful is you as an individual can become uncertain. You as an individual can begin to question yourself. Am I doing the right thing at the right time, on the right day, at the right moment? Am I hiring the right person? Am I putting the right process in place? Things like that. You're just really trying to figure things out, right? Every single level that I've ever created, that gets easier and easier, okay? So you got to know the business in and of itself is not going to get easier. What's going to get easier is the problem solving behind the business, okay? So for years 3 and 4, kind of in that 5 or under stage, you're just trying to get your feet and foundation set, okay? That's the key. Everything that you're doing is foundation building. It's block building. It's stacking one block on top of the other and beginning to get more comfortable as you go and really starting to identify what is the identity of the business? What is this going to be? What are we about? How do we perform? Who do I need on my team? Things like that, right? You're creating the foundation. Once the foundation is set in place, a lot of the things that could go wrong, situations that could develop and come up, those things come up. And what happens when that happens is every single challenge that comes up, every single problem that you have to deal with, your mind calluses a little more. You get less reactive and less panicked about the problems that you're going through. And what begins to happen is you develop this sense of maturity, this business maturity, where it's like, okay, I'm acceptant of the fact now that shit is going to happen. It's not an if anymore. It's a when. Things are going to come up. Things are going to go awry. Things are going to shift. And on a moment's notice, I have to learn how to be adaptable, right? And I think there's this balance in the world of building a business where you become reactive, proactive, and at the same time, you become uncertain and okay, but you also have this level of certainty. The certainty is you get smarter and you're able to overcome bigger problems. And that's where the levels typically grow. And when you've said, okay, I've got this one particular problem, I've learned how to overcome this problem and certain other problems. And then what happens is another door opens and you expand to that next level. That's a whole different podcast for another day. But it's this process at the beginning of just learning that it's going to be hard. I'm okay with it being hard. There's going to be things that I'm certain about. There's going to be some uncertainty that I have to be okay with. There's going to be things that I got to be proactive with. I also have to learn to be incredibly reactive. And learning, I'm saying that, and I get that, right? For those of you new listening to this, I'm saying that really fucking fast, and I'm saying it like it's easy. And I know that it's not easy. Okay, some of you that might be 8 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 down the road, you guys never surrendered to this part of foundational building in the business. So your shit's been way harder than it has to be. Okay, and that's when we're going to get into part 2 of this in just a second. I want you guys who are listening to this right now to really understand. It took a long time for me to really grasp that was part of the process that I had to understand. There were going to be days where shit was just not going to be right. And I had to learn how to be okay with that and at the same time be able to adjust on the fly and at the same time be okay with the fact that I was uncertain about what was going on and at the same time react and build proactive processes all in the same moment. And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time. And for a lot of you guys, it's going to be hard. And if you're listening to this now, like I was saying, and you're further down the road, you're 5 years, multiple years down the road, and you still haven't surrendered to that, if you keep fighting it, it will fuck you at some point. It will take your legs out from underneath you. You'll never be able to get the foundation in place. You'll never be able to understand that business as a whole is this way. It ebb and flows every day. Yesterday, the shit that I was doing in business has already changed today. I'm okay with that. I've become okay with that. And some of you guys are fighting that as if you have some fucking weird level of control to be able to control everything that happens in your business, but you don't. You never know when something's going to go awry. And if you don't adapt and learn that mindset of being able to do those 4 things that I was talking about earlier, it's not ever going to be okay. And it's always going to feel ridiculously hard. Okay. There are days in here, real talk, there's days in here where shit is easy. It's just another day. It's a day of walking through the doors that are opening and having powerful conversations with people and making power moves and things like that because we did a great job planning and the plan is being executed to perfection. There's other days where I walk in here and we have a plan and it goes to shit. Like the whole thing goes to shit. It goes to hell in a handbasket. In that moment, I have a choice. I can either freak the fuck out and way overreact, or I can go back to those things that I was talking about from a foundational level and lean on those things to get me through. Okay, what happened? What am I certain about? What am I uncertain about? What must I create going forward so that this doesn't happen again? How do I react? How do I change? So on and so on. There's just a series of questions that, again, in another podcast, another day, I can walk you guys through that, okay? So that's step one. That's, if I had to break these things into 2 categories, I would say that's the necessary hard. Okay. That's the necessary struggle. That's the necessary pain that you as an entrepreneur, it's kind of like paying the price, right? It's like paying the piper. This is the necessary pain that you must endure and learn to endure with a certain set of skills and mindset so that when it happens, you understand that it's a gift. It's not a curse. It's not something trying to fuck with you. It's not some kind of weird karma catching up to you. It's part of the price that you have to pay to get to the next level. It's part of the challenge that you must endure for the next door to open. That's just the way it goes, okay? So let's get to the second part of the stuff that is the hurt or the chaos or the struggle that's not necessary. Okay, this is when somebody takes something that should be relatively uncomplicated and complicates the shit out of it. Let me be maybe the first one ever to tell you one of the fastest ways for a business to be a wreck and get themselves in trouble is when. Hold on a second. My Siri is trying to talk to me. Is when you got a business where people are constantly overcomplicating processes. Okay. And what I mean by that is if your mind has got to think as you build processes, what is the simplest way to get from point A to point B? What is the easiest way to find, let me give you practical application, okay? Practical application is this. If I'm going to go hire somebody, what's the process that I'm going to use to hire somebody? What's the path of least resistance? What is the most efficient way to make that happen? Okay? I have literally seen businesses that take something that could be done in 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, make it a 30, 40, 50 step process, which what that does is that creates chaos and confusion and makes it hard for the people in the business to function. It makes it hard on you as the business owner to try to figure out where is the breakdown. So your main objective is least amount of steps that can get you to the desired location in which you're going to go. Least amount of processes that can get you to. I don't know if I've commented. I was on a podcast not too long ago, so I'm not certain if I brought it up on this one. So forgive me here if I have. But one of the things that I was telling this person that I was interviewing with on this podcast is we used to be in the habit inside of one of my other businesses of building overly complicated processes for really fucking stupid people. And then our really smart people would come in and say, dude, you're making our lives and our jobs and everything that we're working to build here for you really, really difficult. Because you're instead of weeding out the people that aren't a fit, you guys are trying to make them a fit by building a widget that we can't even use. So you've created so many processes and so many systems and so many steps because this guy over here doesn't fucking get it, that now the people that do get it spend so much time being inefficient because it's just too complicated, right? So the difference and what I'm talking about here is the necessary pain and the necessary process that you have to go through that's hard on the one side, that's you rising to the next level, developing to the next level, and the stuff that you're making hard by accident and default. And some of you guys, I like to tell stories. I don't use people's names in this, by the way, and I like to give you examples of like where we saw a client overly complicating and developing processes. We came in and simplified the process and watched the business scale. I give you these stories not to embarrass the people that have gone through it. That's why I don't use names, but to use as an example to show you where there's probably things going on in your business. And really, you can apply this to life, right? You guys can apply this to life. Where are you overly complicating and making things in your own life harder than what they have to be? Another example, if you're somebody that struggles with your fitness, where are you, and you've been struggling to lose weight, or you've been struggling to gain weight, or whatever, where are you making it harder on yourself than it has to be? The process to gain muscle and the process to lose weight in and of itself is a hard thing to do, but where are you overcomplicating it? Where are you, if you're trying to lose weight, where are you eating a couple pieces of pizza or some ice cream or whatever that you probably shouldn't be doing? Right? That's making it harder on yourself than it really has to be. Inside of your marriage, where are you overcomplicating it? Are you holding out affection for your wife because you're not getting the affection that you feel like you deserve? So you're overcomplicating the whole fucking process because you won't just go give her a fucking hug? I mean, these are things that I'm telling you that I've done myself, that the reason for these podcasts is because I don't want to see you make the same mistake. That's the point. Right? Your business in and of itself is hard enough, and when you're trying to grow and scale it, I don't want to see you make it unintentionally or more hard than it has to do by overcomplicating shit. That's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve the people that you are doing business with, so on and so on. So the homework, if you will, for this week is for you to go and take an inventory on your life. And I want you, your life, your business, all that stuff. I want you to start to separate out where it's hard because it's supposed to be, right? Going to the gym, lifting weights, that's hard because it's supposed to be. In order for you to expand and grow, you got to go through a little bit of pain to create what it is you want on the other side. And I want you to make a list of all the unnecessary hards that you're creating for yourself and your life and your business. If you are trying to get more fit, so we'll just stay on that, but you are not going to the gym, or you're not drinking enough water, or you're eating like a fucking child, or whatever the case may be, and you're like self-sabotaging, you're making it harder than it has to be, stop doing that shit. But for me, what I've found is the best way to get conscious of it is to write that shit down, right? And what I love is if you go into your business and you bring your people in and you sit them down and you're like, hey, where are we overcomplicating this? I want real feedback from you guys. Where do you feel like that we're making it harder on ourselves and our clients and people in here and whatever the case may be? Where are we making it harder than it has to be? You're going to be, I think you might be pleasantly shocked, because I have not been in one fucking business, not one, where I walked in, brought some of the employees in, and I'm like, where are we overcomplicating this thing? and we found at least one or two areas that we could take, tweak, make more efficient, and then all of a sudden it eliminates just a little bit more chaos and stress. That's what we're after. Okay? So there's absolutely no reason for you to go through life. Life in and of itself presents enough hardships. There's no reason for you to overcomplicate and make things any harder than they have to be, right? We talk about this go-to-war type of mindset, and the whole reason why we do this podcast, it's about simplification too, right? It's making things easier. It's making the drag. We put ourselves through enough challenges. We don't need to add any drag or necessary resistance, if you will. The stuff that we do is hard enough. There's no reason to overly complicate it. So where are you accidentally or on purpose, maybe unconsciously adding hardships to your life, and how can you undo that? That's what you need to figure out for this week. So thank you guys for hanging out with me for a little bit, listening to the podcast. Again, please, if you got something out of this, like and share this with everybody, and leave a positive review or some type of review so we can see how things are going out there and make adjustments as we go. Thanks for listening to the Go to War podcast. Take care.